Back when I heard Mr. Toad's Wild Ride was being removed back in 1998, I was shocked to say the least. It was fun, popular, and just didn't make any sense to remove it. Most attractions that do get removed are for a good reason. When they closed the Dumbo ride at Magic Kingdom, they reopened it with double rider capacity and at an air-conditioned playground for a queue line. That is brilliant. That being said, here are, in my opinion, 5 rides that must go in the Walt Disney World Resort and Universal Orlando resorts that do need some kind of updated or, if not flat out, being replaced. Tomorrowland Speedway, Magic Kingdom. You know what's cool? Go-karts. You know what sucks? Long lines, cars you really don't steer due to being on a thin guide rail, lawnmower-style combustion engines spewing exhaust and not electric engines, and what I can only describe as restrictor plates that allow a blinding 5 miles an hour. It seems like fun if you're too young to drive, but once it starts, you realize you've made some bad choices at a very young age. If you're lucky, it will take less than 5 minutes after an average of a 60-minute wait. If you get stuck behind someone with a bad car or can't reach the pedals, then just contemplate your soothing 10-minute glide on the Tomorrowland Transit Authority People Mover. Seriously, skip the speedway, go enjoy the ultimate dad ride. Terminator 2 3D, Universal Studios. T2 was and is one of the best action movies of all time. A theme park attraction sounded like the best matchup in the world. Then after just 2 years, the gears started to grind, because they had made another Terminator movie, then a TV series, then another movie, then finally Terminator Spellcheck. They spilled some serious cash on this attraction, over $60 million, which I believe is the most ever spent on a non-ride attraction. You watch an entry queue video that was partially updated last year after 19 years of constantly running. Then you go into a theater and get fed a show that begins live action but ends with a 3D movie. After the third or fourth movie, I could expect the attraction should have been gutted, but with how much they spent on this originally, they may have had a hard time letting it go, or at least in the Florida location. The California Hollywood location opened in 1999, but then closed in 2012. Carousel of Progress, Magic Kingdom. Disney himself created a number of exhibits for World's Fairs that ended up becoming very popular attractions in his parks. The Hall of Presidents, It's a Small World, and of course, the Carousel of Progress, which follows this weird time-traveling family of boredom that can't go further than what seems like the 90s, but carries the humor of a 70s sitcom just short of getting canceled. The Magic Kingdom has such a low outlook for this attraction that it's only open seasonally now. There are some internet reports of workers getting crushed by the moving walls, but those, I believe, may only come up to be creepypastas at best. There are videos, however, on YouTube showing how the ride gets stuck multiple times, and the audience has to sit through several rotations of the audio animatronic singing this "Future is the greatest progression whatever" song, and you can hear them moaning after the third or fourth rotation. So if it breaks down, as often as it does, and doesn't run all year long, maybe it's time to put it out to pasture. Thank you, Walt, for everything you've done, but we need this space in Tomorrowland for better use. Poseidon's Fury, Islands of Adventure. This attraction has some of the most beautiful exteriors of almost any attraction not connected to Harry Potter. After that, there's not much else I can talk about. You see, this is a special effects show that uses a combination of fire, water, and lights. But during its run, it's had 2 completely different shows. The first run had an old man guiding you down Poseidon's temple under the sea. Then Poseidon shows up as an animated merman and begins to wreck his shit all over the palace. The old man transforms into Zeus, and there's splashing, and then there's fire, and you end up right back in the room you began with. It was good, but the second run changed up enough to ruin everything. Now, instead of some old architect, you meet some dweeb who stumbles along. You end up in Poseidon's temple again. But this time we see a live action video of some wizard dude who is badly dressed and looks like a cross between Ganondorf and Dracula, who's playing the bad guy. Some character we've never heard of. And he's trying to get the trident from our quote-unquote host. Poseidon shows up this time as the good guy, but he looks like a Lady Gaga backup dancer. And these two fight while the water is flying and fire somehow burns underwater. It doesn't make any sense. Now, why does the first version work better? In my opinion, the animated characters help to suspend the disbelief long enough to enjoy it. The live-action video being projected onto the streams of water look like cutscenes from any of the CDI Legend of Zelda games. Universe of Energy, Epcot. Epcot is by far my personal favorite of the theme parks. With the technological and traditional viewpoints, and between when I went to the park in 1994, then again in 2002, nearly half of the entire park was updated in that time span. But one ride is a dated hunk of nappy time. Ellen's Energy Adventure, or the Universe of Energy when it first opened, was an eye-assaulting chunk of the 80s. Although it was a technical marvel when it first opened, the theater seats would separate and move along through time, and you would watch extra large audio animatronic dinosaurs and bugs. It was the opening and closing movies that sandwiched the ride that killed all the fun. They were lengthy and dull. I had nodded off during the closing film and awoke right before its end. I took note of how many people had also fallen asleep. Fast forward a few years, and the movie had been updated with Ellen DeGeneres as a host and Bill Nye as a guest. There's cameos with Jamie Lee Curtis and a sweet stash-rockin' Alex Trebek. But like before, both films aged very quickly, are overly campy, and are more educational than they are entertaining. Those are just 5 theme park attractions that I feel need an update or flat-out removal. If you've been to a park and think any of the rides or shows are long overdue, let us know in the comments or find me on the Twit machine at 8-Second Delay. I'm Bob and I'm one of the third of the Cretans Guild. We play board games, video games, trivia games, and discuss anything that falls under nerd culture and attempt to break the mythos behind what being a nerd is. On top of having theme park nerds, we have hockey nerds, film nerds, football nerds, comic nerds, alcohol nerds, nerds who watch the news and weather. We cover lots of ground of pop culture and counterculture. Plus, you've heard this 1,000 times before. Subscribe so you don't miss on any of the future topics.